Hi everybody, Elizabeth here with Coffee and Crafting. I'm with Country Peony and welcome to episode 9 of Coffee and Crafting, where I love after lunch to grab a cup of coffee and craft. And so today we're going to be making a really pretty Halloween decoration. And yes, you heard me right, pretty Halloween decoration. So even though I was born on Halloween, I'm not a big fan of the spooky and scary. It's not really what I like. And so I didn't really ever decorate for Halloween until I realized that you can make Halloween your own. You can make it pretty, you can make it fun. So thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so excited to craft with you. Today we're gonna be making these pretty skulls. This technique is so simple, it's so fun, and whether or not you actually make your own pretty skulls, I hope you take this technique and use it on other projects throughout the year. So I've also made one back here, as you can see. I just had a lot of fun with the pattern play and the different colors, but my only goal was to make sure that they were nice and pretty. But you can use any fabric that you have on hand. It doesn't really take a whole lot. I think it wasn't even 1/4 of a yard that I used, so it's very simple. I have also done this technique on pumpkins, as you can see here. I did this project about 6 years ago. These pumpkins are holding up extremely well. I've linked below this specific project that you can check out on my blog if you want to make your own fall fabric pumpkins using this technique. It is the same that we're going to do today, except I added pumpkins and then I added some fun twine to the top to give it a little bit more detail. But that just goes to show that this technique can be used on all kinds of things. I've done it to Easter eggs. I've done it to bunnies for Easter time. It's been really fun. So let me get into what you're going to need. The beauty with this project is that it does not require a lot of materials, and honestly, most of these materials you probably already have at home, and so it's fairly inexpensive. So I was wandering the aisles of Dollar Tree, as one does, and I saw these really fun styrofoam skulls, and I thought, I can make this technique with these skulls, and that's what I did, and that's what I'm going to show you today. So these were only $1, great investment, very inexpensive. I've also linked a pack below that you can purchase from Amazon, so it's really up to you. The beauty with using styrofoam is that you can poke a hole on the bottom or even on the top and making a fun floral arrangement for Halloween. I could see adding some faux flowers like I have behind me to the head, making a fun centerpiece. But if you do decide to poke a hole, I would do that before you apply the fabric because it'll make it a little bit more difficult. So decide if you're just going to cover the skull and put it as part of a vignette, or if you're actually going to make it into a centerpiece. You can also stack them on top of each other to make a fun topiary of sorts that you can put on your front porch, on your Halloween table. But either way, it's really fun. Okay, so you need your skull head and then Mod Podge, which I prefer gloss. They've got matte, they've got all types of Mod Podge. I've had this specific bottle for a really long time. I honestly think I used this bottle to make these pumpkins over 6 years ago. So it goes a long way, and I Mod Podge all the time. I love it so much. And then you're just gonna need some pretty fabric. So for these two skulls, I used Liberty fabric, which is my favorite. As you can see, I didn't do the bottom because I was gonna poke a hole in it. But you can use whatever fabric you have on hand. It's really up to you. So again, the only preference is the fabric. The pattern needs to be small because you're not matching up your lines. And so it makes it really simple to put on there, because if you are matching up your lines, it's going to make it harder. Hi, Joyce. Thank you so much. It's so good to see you. And I'd love to hear where y'all are coming from. It is finally feeling like fall here in Texas, and it is making me so happy. So we're making these pretty skulls for Halloween. I'm not a fan of the spooky and scary, and so once I realized I can make Halloween pretty, I have had so much fun with the decorations. And whether or not you like pretty Halloween decorations or whatever, I hope this just inspires you to make Halloween your own and what you want it to be. Okay, so now that we've talked about the supplies, oh, and I also like to use a foam brush whenever I'm working with Mod Podge. It makes the application a lot smoother. And my fingers, as you'll see, and then just some scissors. And then I also like to keep a wet towel nearby because this process is so messy. Thank you, Joyce. I'm so happy you agree that you like pretty as well. I've seen some really spooky and scary creative decorations. I think that's fabulous. It's just not my preference. So let's get started. Okay, the first thing you're gonna wanna do is you're going to cut your fabric. And I love this Liberty fabric because it is very thin, it's very soft, and it really lays on beautifully on the skull. And so as far as how to cut your fabric, I just cut them in long strips or chunky squares just to cover up your skull. So about this size is what most of them are, and then some of them are going to be skinnier so you can get around the eyes and so forth. So I'm going to cut a couple of these, and I would love to know if any of you have tried this technique before of using fabric and Mod Podge to cover items. It's so simple. I used to do this with napkins, which are great too, but when you are working with something sturdier like this skeleton or a pumpkin, I prefer to use fabric. And so I will just keep cutting these so I can show you what sizes I'm doing. It doesn't have to be perfect, just cut them. And I will have to tell you that I went to an estate sale this weekend on a whim. We were coming back from soccer practice or soccer games, and we saw an estate sale sign, so we had to stop in. And these scissors, I got them for $1, and they're amazing. They're amazing. Okay, so I'm just gonna keep cutting, and just to kind of show you. Okay, perfect. Okay, so we're cutting strips about this. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. It's all gonna be covered up on here, okay? So now that we have some strips cut, I should say, I'm going to get ready, and I like to protect my work surface. I bought this really cute aluminum, or this pan baking sheet at Home Goods. It was pink. I thought it was fabulous. And so that's what I use to do a lot of my paint projects on, and then my messy glue projects like this one. Okay, so we're gonna open up our Mod Podge, and instead of pouring the Mod Podge out, I like to get the bigger bottle that I can just directly dip my foam brush in so that I don't have to make something else dirty. Okay, so all we're gonna do is we are going to first apply the Mod Podge directly to the skull, and you can overdo it with the Mod Podge, because obviously the more you have, the better it will stick. So you're gonna apply it directly on there, and then you're gonna take one of your fabric strips and you're going to just attach it directly onto your glue. And so you can be really meticulous with this if you're a perfectionist, or you can just take your time smoothing out the edges. So that's why you wanna change the sizes of your fabric, because if they get too big, then they will start to bulk up on each other. The edges won't be as clean and smooth. Okay, so now that you have it on there, attached on there, I like to take the Mod Podge once more, and then I'm gonna do a thicker coat on top. And the way it works is I go from the middle and I go out with it, almost like a starburst pattern. So you're going from the middle and you're going out. And the reasoning behind this is because when you just go across, it starts to bunch up, and that's not good, because you really want a seamless look with this. Okay? So, and then I just always, once I know it's secure, I always like to go back over it, knowing that the Mod Podge is around the entire strip of fabric. Okay? So now here, you don't have to worry about matching up your lines like you would if you were applying wallpaper or something like that. And that's why I do suggest a smaller print, because you can just lay over that, and when you're done, I promise it's gonna look perfect and beautiful like this one, okay? So then we've got our first one on, and now I'm going to apply the second one really close to that one. I do some overlapping because when it dries, you don't want it to shrink up a bit. You want your entire skull covered, okay? So we're just gonna take the next strip and I'm going to place it, I'm going to overlap it on the other one. And I can pull it a little tight so that it's nice and secure. As you can see, okay, so I've got it attached to it, and then I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm just going to take this foam brush, I'm gonna start at the middle and I'm gonna work my way out. Okay, and it's starting to come together. This is so much fun. This is a project you can do on your own, or you can invite friends to come over, or even invite your children or grandchildren to do this with you. It is so simple. Okay. So you can see I've got 2 of them on there. And then I always like to note that too, I say you can use a lot of Mod Podge, but making sure that the streaks are even because you don't want them to bunch up and get bubbly over time, okay? So now that I start to show you the process, I want to show you, which I think is the hardest part of getting this, is getting the eyes and where the nose would be and then the mouth kind of pressed together, because you want to make sure the whole thing with the skull is you want to still see the hollowed out eyes and the nose. And sometimes with this fabric, it can bunch up, okay? So this is where it gets fun and a little messy. So I'm going to trim some of these because we don't want this to be too big. And then we're going to get started on those. Okay. So I've got a piece about this big that I'm going to attach where the eyes go. Same thing, I'm going to take the Mod Podge and I'm just going to liberally apply it on the inside of the eyes. And one reason I love this project so much is because it's messy. It is so messy. I remember as a kid, I would create for hours and I would have so much fun, but I would make such a mess. And so this kind of brings me back to my childhood. So, okay, so we added the Mod Podge to the inside of this eye, and then we're just gonna take one side of this fabric and we're going to use our finger to add the fabric into the inside of the eye. And at this point, your finger is really your best tool to get those smooth edges. As you can see, you've got one side covered. Wonderful, okay? And now you're gonna do that to the other side. I'm actually gonna take this brush and I'm going to add another coat to the top of it because you really want all of your fabric covered with at least one coat of Mod Podge before you finish. Okay, so now I'm gonna go, I did one side of the eye socket, now I'm gonna do the other side. I'm gonna take another small strip of fabric and I'm going to attach it to the other side of this eye. And it doesn't really matter how the fabric lays, honestly. It's just, we just wanna make sure that it covers the entire skull. So, and this can get a little tricky because your hands are starting to get dirty and they're dirty from the Mod Podge and they are sticking to the fabric. So just take your time with it. And that's also why I keep a wet towel nearby, okay? So I'm starting to add the imprints, and if you need to add more Mod Podge around it, do that, it's perfect. Add it to the inside so you can start to really work with that eye. And then you're gonna lay it flat inside there. You're gonna use your fingers, which is the best tools. As my mother always says, the best tools that God gave you are your fingers to work with. And so they really help here. So I'm just using my fingers to lay out and really smooth out those edges, as you can see, okay? It's so much fun. You're gonna have so much fun with this project, I promise you. Okay, but just taking your time, sometimes that fabric can be a little stubborn and it wants to keep coming up on itself. Like I'm having a little issue here with the nose, it's wanting to come up on itself, but you just keep working with it, and then when you lay the other fabric over it, it'll be just fine. Okay, so now I'm gonna cover that entire eye socket. So again, I'm gonna add the Mod Podge to the top, and I'm just gonna lay it on there. Okay, perfect. It's so fun. Y'all are gonna love this. Okay, so my hands are getting a little sticky again, so I have got to clean them off. Okay, so again, just using your fingers and the Mod Podge to start to smooth out all those wrinkles and those edges. And this is the hardest part of it, because you're wanting to make sure you still have that definition from the skull. And now I'm going to take and add some Mod Podge down here so that I can lay flat when I bring the fabric over. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but because when it does dry, it'll look really good. It'll look really good. Just making sure to have it as smooth as possible as you can. Okay, wonderful. You can see I've got both of my eyes covered. And then you're just going to continue to play with it. And you will see as it starts to dry, if some of the fabric ends stick up. If they do, you just take some Mod Podge, you cover it with it, and it's not a problem. Okay, so I'm going to continue to cover this front side of his face. And, okay. And now I'm just going to lay it, making sure I overlap so that I don't see any of the fabric seams or any of the skull after it is dried. And making sure with the skull, really working with the divots and the crevices on this skull, because that's really what gives it its shape, is all these fun different shapes like around the jaw and here in the eyes. And then around the head, he's got some fun divots here on both sides of its head, as you can see. Okay, and so I'm just going to keep working. I'll do a couple more of these, and then I will do the mouth, so you can see what I do there around his bones. I'm sorry, his teeth. Okay, so again, you're just going to keep making sure, using your hands, smoothing it out, taking your time. It is so fun. It's a great project to do in an afternoon. It doesn't take that long. And you can customize it to whatever fabric you have on hand. This would even be a great project for those quilt strips that you can purchase in a bundle. Just making sure that you have enough of one fabric, because you're not wanting to put a whole bunch of different patterns on here. Unless that's your vibe, if that's what you're going for, great. If you get inspired to do that, that's perfect. Okay. So I'm just going to show you now how to do the teeth, and then you can finish the rest on your own. So I just really liberally applied that Mod Podge to the teeth, and I'm pressing it over it. And so now I'm going to apply the Mod Podge over the fabric so that I have plenty to go around. It's almost like you're creating a mask for the skull. Okay, I think that's enough. And so now what I'm gonna do is I'm really gonna go in and I'm really going to find those, again, those cracks and those crevices in the skull to really make that shape of the skull. And now I'm gonna go in with my fingernail and I'm going to find the teeth and pressing in so that when it dries, you can see that there is teeth there, the mouth is starting to form and shape. So you can start to see I'm making the shapes with the mouth. And here I did the same with that. So it is really starting to take shape. It is so fun. I'm gonna apply one more over here to show you what it looks like. But it's so fun, it is so simple. And again, you probably have most of these items in your home already, aside from the skull. And I gave you a suggestion, if you don't have a Dollar Tree near you, for the skull that you can get on Amazon. But either way, it's just such a fun project that you can do by yourself or with friends or with family for Halloween. And if you really love the spooky and scary, you can do this with a spooky and scary fabric as well. I'm not gonna stop you. It's really whatever your heart desires and what you prefer, because ultimately that's what it's about, is creating something that you love. And if you're giving it as a gift that your recipient loves. Okay, so I think I've got a good stopping point to show you where I think you understand kind of the idea of this fabric covered skull. I think it's so cute. I love how they turned out. There's the other one. I just love it, and I think it could be really fun as part of a tablescape. You put some fresh flowers out, you put these on these beautiful cake stands to really make it extra pretty, or you can add it to a floral arrangement. You can put flowers coming out of it. The possibilities really are endless. It is such a fun craft. I hope you enjoyed today's tutorial. I am going to continue this so I can finish it and show you in an upcoming video and blog post. But thank you so much for joining me on episode 9 of Coffee and Crafting. I really loved having you. I cannot wait to see you next Monday at noon Central Standard Time here on Facebook for another episode of Coffee and Crafting. And until next time, happy crafting.